ultimately going with this is that this guy's revenue, how many of us have our personal emails where our bank accounts are tied to? I mean, there's just so much that is outside of my business that's protected. But as a business owner, I have exposure at a personal side that I never really consider because I only think that I'm going to be hacked from the professional side of things. And I think that's all changing with these data breaches that are starting to take place. And how do we counsel these business owners around this?
Well, I think it's an education. I think you just said the answer. I think it is a counseling moment
Hmm.
to use these stories, right? Take that story about that blogger you just found and say, hey, look, this guy's worth, high net worth,
Yeah.
like yourself. And you deal with healthcare, like you're a physician, you're a whatever, you're high net worth. Let's walk through your scenario. If your stuff was hijacked, right? What would
Right.
happen here, here, and here?
And how's Google going to help you? Because if you got a Gmail account, you have no back door. There's no way to help you, right? How do you get
Yeah.
help? Anyway,
No,
my question's done, and I'll turn it over to you, and then I'll drill into this later.
yeah, no, it's really good stuff. So I know it's about two after. Leron, are you with us? Because I know you have a piece today, so I just want to make sure you're with us.
I'm here, yes.
Hey, bud, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Andrew?
And thanks for sending that over, because that thing you sent me this morning, I'm going to use as a segue right into what we're talking about today, because it's Microsoft and what I mean, they're becoming I'm joking around, but it seems like they're becoming I don't know, the last pass of 2024 right now. It's like they're just going from, what seemed as the kind of really becoming the bellwether in security up there with CrowdStrike, and they are just going really not doing well right now in terms of what's being exposed from what's happening with them.
Andrew, I'll just expound on that one step further. I'm looking at their Copilot marketing campaigns, and there is absolutely nothing about threat prevention or vulnerabilities that come from Copilot as well.
Copilot's a whole nother thing. We're doing I'm having a data. I'll just say this one last thing, Amy, and we'll get into it. I'm having a data scientist from a company called Netrix on the cyber call Monday as we expand upon data security. And if you implement Copilot and don't think about this, you're an MSP, you have multiple customers now running Copilot, let's just say. Often, as we know, because it's an uplift, it's more so going to be people in the, let's just say, mid management and up, right, that are going to be using Copilot typically, right?
Okay.
Executives and things of that nature. Well, executives and people like that have access typically to more sensitive data. What we're going to go through is that the way Microsoft has set up their ecosystem is basically by default, right? Based on your access, you are securing nothing out of the gate with Copilot. So we assume access to everything.
Yep. Anonymous links too.
Yes. And then it's from there, it's okay, I need to either upgrade to E5 and then go customer by customer, individual by individual, access by access, and or E3 with Intune and an upgraded SharePoint security uplift. So, Amy, think about this now from an MSP's perspective, because they're not, a multi-tenant friendly environment, right? But Ben, I know you're posting something. Ben, does this resonate with you in terms of what's happening and or what we're going to face early on here with the release of these, like a Copilot?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I posted an article of things you shouldn't be able to ask Copilot. Nero posted.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's pretty. It's pretty. Like, I get the. I get the, wow, this is great. Like, you could do all these great productivity things with, again, it's always, as Phyllis Lee says from CIS, right? It's always the balancing act of security and usability, right, Ben? but at the same time, like when you think about it, by default, if I'm an HR person and I have access to all these W-2s and all this payroll data and all these other things, well, then if a threat actor compromises me, so do they. And if I'm using Copilot, right, I can then ask Copilot for all this information. It's going to be really fascinating, air quoting that, over the next year or two about what's going to happen. And again, unfortunately, I think threat actors are several steps ahead of us on this one in terms of how they're going to weaponize this.
Think about Teams and the chats that you have that you think
What's
are
that?
private. Think about Microsoft Teams and the chats that you have that you think are private, either within the MSP or within the customer environment. All that becomes instantly available to Copilot.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right. Let's start the PowerPoint. Let's get on into it. I apologize in advance for those that have come on late. I had my fiber optic cable at my home ripped up in about 40 zillion pieces, so I'm working out of a Starbucks today. If there's background noise, I apologize up front. I'll share out my screen and agenda here. All right, so we'll start off typically with wins of the week. And then from there, is it bad, Amy, in terms of the background? I don't know what you guys are.
No, I think it's okay.
Okay, perfect. We'll start with wins of the week. Oh, we did Gary last week, so Gary, sorry about that if you're with us again. And then, which was an awesome win. Amy's got some stuff on the marketing side, and I go around the survey winner. Leron's got some awesome updates. Leron, you have to do 15 minutes. Sorry, it's 15 minutes or nothing.
I know. It's fine.
So I hope you have a banjo or something, if we're done at 10. All right.
I got better. I got Ben lined up to talk in case I only talk for 60 seconds.
All right. And then we'll talk about what Andy started this call asking kind of rhetorically or sharing. I'll let him reshare the story and then we'll get on into it. All right. So let's start off with our favorite subject, wins of the week. I hope somebody's going to raise their hand and say, hey, we had an awesome stock or win with SaaS, or didn't even have to be, if it's not SaaS, that's okay too. Did you have an awesome win this week?
It doesn't even have to be awesome. Like, it can be a small win.
How do I raise my hand?
I know.
Is that
You
Jason?
do it like this.
There we go. That's the stupidest question I've ever heard. Good point.
All right, Jason, you're on the record
Yeah.
here.
Hey, look, folks, right. Look, we're an MSSP that works with MSPs. We use SaaS alerts everywhere. We have thousands of licenses. We are now reaching a point with response configurations that we are blocking. When I talk about we block BECs, when I say the number, I'm referring to BECs that we can identify through behavior or through additional actions. It's truly a block BEC, not just something that we suspect. If I use that logic, they're probably 50. But, we've reached 15 known behavior BECs. I had Chris Lair look at a couple of them. I go back a long way. And it's just stopping these really, really malicious BECs. Their traffic, their behavior is, because we resolve a lot of them for people, the behavior is they come in, they find a way to get through MFA, whether it's token session theft. There's a new thing that's going out where they send you a text message and say, we want to identify your ID that you bought this thing. So I'm going to send you a code and you get it back to me. Well, that's actually the code to get into Office 365 MFA. But point being, they're exfiltrating data out of OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, and extorting the user from whom they've taken the data. And if they don't pay, they'll extract the data and extort the client of the impacted institution. Respond, is doing its job. It's blocking these BECs. And as far as I know right now, there isn't much that, I don't know of anything right now that properly configured is doing it the way SaaS Alerts is doing it, right? And so these are tens of thousands of dollars that we're saving people for the price of a license. Come on now, give me a break, right? And I think the critical narrative here with people is we've got to get this in your environment. This is the number one threat landscape. This is what we got to do. We have to put the respond module in. We have to have the right rule sets to block these BECs and then report them back to the client. I'm hearing a lot of talk that SaaS Alerts is chatty and noisy and got a lot of alerts. That's down to configuration, folks. That's the same thing in Office 365. There's no difference, right? It has to be configured appropriately, but please spend time in the respond module. Its ability to block outright is right now, as far as I'm concerned, beyond compare. And I just want to thank you guys for that product, because it has been, for just a plain security guy, it's been phenomenal, really has. And it's important people hear that. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, Jason, great stuff. Amy, this kind of dovetails into that weekend email we were going back and forth with that I wish SaaS Alerts, almost like the debt clock, right? You could tag something like Jason saying, this stop $10,000 BEC here, this, that, the other, and that you start a calculator right on the SaaS Alert site. Because I think it is pretty staggering. Like Jason, you said it best. This is, and again, when you look at the threat reports, right, we know this is by far the number one way in which threat actors are extorting these days, especially in SMB, right? We know it's going to be credential driven. When I showed the data last week, it has to do, when we look at vulnerabilities in 0 days and web application attacks, web apps certainly, but the web app attacks even, are up there because of credential theft. So these all, again, come back to credential harvesting, access brokering, social engineering attacks. So I can't agree with you any further.
I think the other narrative that I forgot to mention, and we have guys that do nothing but BEC responses, and I think it's important to take note of the ability to block the BEC in SaaS Alerts versus the work that it takes to configure all the necessary conditional access components. And I'm not one of the BEC guys. I can't understand half the report they write. But what I do know is the time to configure blocking capability is 1/10 of the time. Right. And the likelihood of being inaccurate is significantly lower. Right. Because it's much, much, much easier to configure. And I think it's important that people hear and know that, because that's another real positive of what we see with the respond module, right? You don't have to be a intra, I think that's what they call it this month, or, an expert. You can just configure SaaS to be done with it. Right?
May I make a request on behalf of the SaaS Alerts office hours team? Would you have your team be willing to come and talk about the ways you categorize your respond rules? I think that would be a great education for those of us that aren't as adept with it as you may be and your team.
Was that a request to Jason?
I was a request to Jason for the office hours that happen every other week at SaaS Alerts, and saying, would you have one of your team members say, these are how you are defining your business email compromise globally, not specific rules, but broadly, this is how we're identifying them, and add that value to the community. You're muted, Jason.
Oops,
now I want to hear
Jason.
you.
Yeah, I'm an expert at Zoom, so you got to give me a speed. But look, originally I thought about our rules were our intellectual property. I don't care anymore, really. So I'm happy to do what makes sense for everyone, and share the rules that we've curated out of these incidents, if that's helpful.
And it could be just a strategy about the different ways that you're going about it, not necessarily the rule detail itself. But anyway, I'm done.
I will talk to John, the guy that leads that group, and make some time with the SaaS search folks if they find that poignant and interesting.
Yeah, definitely. We can have Ben and Michelle reach out and arrange something too.
Yeah, because the way I'll do it is I'll sit over here and I'll go, because I'm not the one that does it. So, John's a good guy. So, maybe he can, we can talk through what we've put through and what we've curated. And, if kind of reducing the noise is another, topic of interest, we certainly can put our narrative out there if it helps anybody.
Awesome. And then Enrique, did I see you raising your hand as well?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I gave 2 thumbs up so I could get the fireworks.
Oh, okay.
Everything Jason was saying about SaaS alerts. And Andy, I was giving him 1 thumb up because I thought that was a great suggestion on his part. Count me in for that one.
Awesome. Well, we'll let you know when we get something coordinated.
I'll do it for the helmet behind him in the picture. I'll do it for
that.
Everybody thinks it's a Ravens helmet. It's a University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunner.
I know what it is.
Oh,
okay. So everybody tells me, why do you have a Raven helmet in Texas? And I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Andrew, do you see Chad's question in the chat?
Okay. So Chad, do you mind just coming on and reading that out for like where you're coming from? Like I see what you're saying, but next popular exploit.
Yeah, what's next after token theft isn't an issue anymore is my question, kind of boiled down. There's already things that are kind of rolling out. Microsoft's solution is primary refresh tokens. Google's solution is the device-bound session credentials. They kind of use the same underlying technology.
Mm-hmm.
I can show you here. I'll put this in chat.
Yeah, please.
If people want to read about the actual functionality on the GitHub. Yeah, Ben says back to social engineering.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what people think is the next lowest, easiest attack path once token theft goes away.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's interesting is like each year, we have the Verizon data breach primary author on the cyber call, Chad, and I think Ben's spot on. It's some, it's typically something around social engineering. It's what's really clear, right, is the state-sponsored threat actors, right? If we look at what they're doing, they are focusing on technology companies, right? They're very patient, right? If we look at, Midnight Blizzard or the Chinese threat actors, right? The government-based, right? The state-sponsored agencies, they're going after their supply chain, like the largest of large, right? We're going to talk about Microsoft today to kick off our session at some point. But I think you either see large scale, methodical, infiltrated supply chain attacks, or we're just seeing credential theft, with these large scale data breaches. It doesn't have to be too complex, right? And when you have 32% of people using MFA and the amount of credentials out there, you don't have to be too creative. You know what I mean?
Andrew, can I add one more really quick?
Yeah, of course.
So if you support anybody in the public sector, you support anybody that has anything to do with Israel, Gaza, Ukraine, and Russia, we've been working with Recorded Future on what they're finding, because I'm a CISO for a big nonprofit, but is doxing, right? If you haven't noticed it, so they are gathering as much information as they can through BEC compromises, gathering data. But the objective here is to dox executives and leaders of these organizations, and even small ones, particularly the religious driven organizations that support these efforts. And they're doxing these executives and using doxing, of their home and their children's names and, all the information on them they can. That's the extortion threat, right? So if you see a lot of OSINT intelligence or a lot of digging into the types of emails don't really look like they're trying to get data. They're trying to get info, asking questions, sending, forms to fill out that they don't know how it got there. Those are the types of doxing extortions that are starting to pick up.
You still call that spearfishing then?
At the
Or
base of it,
whaling or
that's
whatever you
exactly
call
what,
it?
yeah, it's whaling. Yes, I mean, yeah. But, these folks that are providing assistance in one way or another, or have an
Yeah.
opinion on social media.
So what's old is new again, is what you're saying. There's just going to kind of
Yeah.
circle to existing things, and the same organizational issues, like not properly implementing best practices. I was, with my question, assuming that best practices would be in place, and the next thing, would force bad actors to do something else. But if really it just is circling back to the same old stuff, that's sad, but it is what it is.
It is, and that's exactly what Philip Langlois from Verizon said. Chad, literally, what's old is new. Like what we are seeing though, and I'm kicking myself. I'll find it and I'll bring it next time. What is certainly coming in vogue more and more, Chad, is these social engineering attacks where they're using either a text base or email base, and then getting you to interact with the threat actor, right? In other words, like getting you on the phone with them and actually them walking you through almost a la MGM attack, right? On the help desk, right? I'm air quoting, right? On the help desk, we need to reset your password. Those are certainly becoming more prevalent as well, if that makes sense.
I'm wondering if you could clarify a little bit more about that, because there's standard credential theft, token harvesting, and Jason, you were mentioning like people getting forms to fill out, and Andrew, you just mentioned trying to actually get people on the phone. Like, what else should people involved in those organizations be on the lookout for? Like, what's
about a legitimate business opportunity from another company that isn't legit. And they build trust and engagement, and then they send you a payload in this, and that's what I referred to in this posting I did in the chat about a YouTuber who was going to do a marketing promotion on his channel after engaging for 5 or 6 emails with a large company he recognized, and he fell prey when they sent him the marketing packet.
Yeah. And I think it's gosh, I wish I could just say what I think it is, Ann, is that it's almost like security awareness training has got to be, for lack of a better word, just in time now. Like the days of, we set our whatever, I'm just going to use know before, air quoting it because it's a well-known, right? We set our know before and it does it. And like, I think that is just, forgive me, but very lazy. We all know that, the Visa gift card emails and whatever, like we've all seen them. And I think it's really got to be real-time education. I think that's the difference. And it's going to require us to keep innovating and being in front of our customers. I think we've got to really do a good job in our frontline people, whether you call those VCIOs, whether you call those account managers, whatever you call those people, but it's really getting the culture of helping develop the culture within your company and the policy and culture within the customers you're working with. It's got to be a repetitive thing. It's the fundamentals over and over. Like if you think about any good sports team, man, right? Forgive the analogy. It's like they hammer fundamentals over and over and over and over. I wish there was an easier way. I wish there was an easy button, but I don't think there is.
And these types of threats that Andrew's talking about are often preempted by SEO poison. And, you know, Blackpoint, I got some info from Blackpoint not too long ago about the huge uptick in SEO poisoning. So they will get someone to on the phone, like Andrew's talking about, and they'll say, okay, just go search for, you know, QuickBooks download, right? And that first 3 links have nothing to do with QuickBooks, but they certainly look like it, right? And they're getting you to download the application or to bypass, you know, to bypass your peripheral security, your boundary security.
Yeah.
Get
So-
access to the data. They care about the data. They don't care about anything else. So if you go look for QuickBooks help right now, the first 3 links, the phone numbers, they're all malicious. They're not
Wow.
by any stretch.
That's a spot on thing, Jace. It's
One more thing that I would add is I would encourage you to explore whether you can sell a service where you actually do pen test against your customers. So that's something that we do internally here. We test our employees and we see who's clicking on those phishing emails, and then we know who to focus, right? Because it's a lot better for us to get someone to commit a BEC, not really, but when we control it,
Right.
as opposed to in the real world.
and then you humiliate them, right, Leron? That's the other thing.
We
right?
do. We put it in the big Slack channel. It's a lot of
All
fun.
right, awesome.
They got to wear the ugly tie.
I want to see their dunce hats in the weekly call. That would be the right way to do it, right? No.
They got to wear the ugly. They got to wear the ugly tie for us old guys.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Leron. Okay. Amy, some marketing stuff. We have a winner.
Sure, quickly. I
Yeah.
do have a winner. So first, because Ben just posted it in chat, a reminder, if you're not in our Discord, it's not a channel, is a Discord server. Please join. The link is there. There's lots of chatter there every day that appears to be very helpful to those who are taking part of the conversations. For those of you who took our partner survey last month, we offered up a chance to win $250 Amazon gift card, and I wanted to announce the winner was Ron Cody with Data Cloud out of Ohio. I don't think he's on this call, but wanted to let everyone know who was the winner. And our SaaSonomics webinar is next Tuesday. Michelle posted that link last week. I know a lot of you registered. I will post it again in case anyone is interested or missed it last week. And that's it from marketing.
Awesome, man. All right, Leron, excited to hear what you have cooked up and released. Really, again, and you know, Chad probably said this indirectly, but you guys are phenomenal on the platform that you're building. Like to have a you know, something that is really now a SOAR in the SaaS world is pretty awesome. So what you got for us, Leron?
Thanks, Andrew. And last week we released the new UI for the edit organization. We've talked about that before, and you could see this one I randomly picked it's given me this red whitelisting situation, like what's going on here. So we've seen that when partners first onboard organizations, sometimes they forget to add this configuration. So we're kind of calling that out. And on the UX side, we've taken some steps to ensure that it's more difficult to get into these situations. Sometimes our support team will have support tickets from people saying, I'm being flooded by outside approved locations, what's going on? And they'll come in here and they'll basically see you don't have any of these rules, which is why that's kind of taking place. So we've taken steps to really try to minimize that, to reduce the noise that is being created for you via email or on the PSA side. That came out on Thursday. And then on Friday, right, our 2 goals were to get this out by EOQ1. We got this out on Thursday. And then on Friday, we turned on Fortify templates. So you can find those here. And I'm going to quickly show you a specific template use case that Chip specifically asked me to show you. So you just go into templates right here. I'll talk about this very shortly. And I'm going to create a brand new template over here. I could give it a name. I could give it a description. And I can add tags if I want to organize this for myself. So one potential way to use tags, I could have, let's say, a baseline. I actually spoke to one of the largest MSPs in Australia, and it was either really late or really early, but he must have told me 30 to 40 times in a 30-minute call the importance of being able to baseline the Microsoft tenant from a security standpoint. So let's consider a scenario where we have a baseline plan for regardless of what plan I have the customer on, and then we'll have a bronze, silver, gold type of thing. All right, so for my baseline for everyone, what I want to do is I would come in here and we have this license filter. So you can say AD free, select all these, and let's get those added. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at my license filters, and I'm going to select no license required, because a lot of the recommended actions that Microsoft provides us, in this case, the 27 in the tenants that are test tenants, you're probably going to have more. Select this, add that to selected, right? And just like that, I created a very basic, very simple template whose licensing requirements are nearly non-existent, right? In this case, non-minimal and Azure AD free. And then if I save this template, I can apply that template to all of my organizations, right? So let's call this one baseline. And we're going to save the template here. It's almost like the application knows that I'm in a meeting, so it's going to do this.
Leron, can I ask a question around baseline and the whitelisting of IP addresses? Are we able to collect those addresses before approving or denying them? In other words, can we put it in a monitor mode for whitelisting?
What do you mean when you create an organization and you create the whitelisting rule?
Yeah, if I want to collect what IP addresses they're using as a baseline and using that to and then say, okay, these are the good ones, and then everything else is not. That would be helpful as well.
That is something I can't get too deep into, but let's call it a second half of the year effort that we are examining.
Thank you.
Is that, just real quickly, Ron, Chad, is that in essence kind of what you're asking as well?
I was looking at my phone. I missed it.
Andy was asking about being able to recognize, basically tag legitimate IPs, for the baselining, and then, the system be able to recognize non.
I'd like to pick by organization, because like I'm looking at one that I just got recently, and it sees what it is. It's for Cloud Convert, but it's hosted in, I don't know what it is, Brussels, Belgium or something, but it's an AWS IP address. But I'd love to just have it look into the context of that alert and say, oh, it's Cloud Convert. I've whitelisted that application for that organization, so I don't have to worry about it again. Because if then the IP bounces around or whatever, and I don't want to over whitelist something for anything else that's hosted on that particular IP address on AWS or something like that.
So good question. And I can't see your name because I'm presenting.
I'm
here. Chad. So for the second half of the year, we plan to revamp whitelisting, and for now, the name we're going to give it are power filters. You can think of it as whitelisting 2.0, and that's going to be one of the features that we add. The use case that we've specifically seen repeatedly is a Canadian MSP consistently hitting the Redmond, Washington servers and generating outside of brew location chaos and noise. There's a lot you can do with Respond to mitigate that, but those are workarounds, sort of. They're not what I would consider a clear-cut solution, right? We want to give you a very solid solution to be able to do that. So to handle the scenario that you would talk about, you could basically, with this 2.0 thing that we're designing, you would create a rule, and then you would say this IP, when the ASN is equal to this, or when the application name is equal to that, right? So basically anything on the event in addition to the IP is what you could then add as a filter.
Leon, could you take it one step further and say if it's an approved API, that the IP addresses associated with that API, regardless of where they are approved. So I'm basically saying, let's say I'm using a Cronus backup for Microsoft 365. I don't want to have to worry about where it's going inside of a Cronus, but tying this also to an approved API list, because we don't want shadow IT adding things. We want to be able to say these APIs are approved, therefore their IPs are also approved. These are not approved, and they have to go through an API acceptance process.
It depends on the data. Like I would need to see what that data looks like. Our markers or indicators on the data that we can reliably call on. But the issue, right, is what I just said, like reliably. If I'm a bad actor, I just potentially created a way in, right? If we start creating these rules that are depending on this field telling us that it's coming from so-and-so vendor, right? If I see activity and that field gets somehow compromised and bad actors figure out how to mask whatever that field is, then we could run into trouble, right? So we have to really examine the data and see how reliable that field is. And Andy, like, to be honest, I don't even know if it exists. I'd have to examine what we call the raw data before we could take it to the next level. So let's quickly go back here, right? So I have this baseline and I can edit my template over here. I can also edit the organizations. Now we only have a couple of organizations here. I'm not going to apply it because we don't want to lock out our entire team from our Microsoft test tenants. But what I would do is I can select all, add to selected, and if I press confirm here, these two organizations are now going to have all of the available recommended actions that we called out and identified. And if I want to see the details, I can click here and I can see what we have going on. I can search for this, right? So I can see what it is I plan to apply. And then when you press confirm, you guys know that Microsoft updates their recommended action secure score every 24 hours. So around midnight Eastern Standard, all of these recommended actions are going to execute.
One last question around this. Is there a change management report that we could generate based on these templates that get applied so that we could report back, hey, we identified this as a threat, we implemented this template, here's the baseline application date, and going forward, this action's taken place?
I'm gonna say no, but then I'm gonna ask Amanda to agree or disagree with me. And the reason that I think the answer is no is because we wanted to get the templates out and put them in your hands, then see what sort of information people need, and then build on the report side of this. But Amanda, please feel free to correct me based on Andy's question.
Nope, you're right. There is not a report yet that will have the template actions, but we do have events for templates. So you could still use analyze to see that a template was applied and to where, who.
Thank you, Amanda. So last thing here is the community templates work is underway right now. We expect that to come out within, I'd say, 2 to 6 weeks. And for instance, the baseline template that I talked about, that could be one that we add in here. And if I know our team here, I would say there's maybe a contest with the community templates. I'm not exactly sure if we're going to do one or not, but we'll have community templates here. And what's going to be different here than the way that we do respond templates is if you have a template that you want to submit to us for review as a potential public template, you will be able to do that. It's not going to look all that different from the respond templates once you're in there. It's just going to be a list of templates, a description, and then you can clone it and use it if you so choose. Are there any questions?
Oh, well, let me let the folks ask questions first. Let's see. Any questions, folks? Would Lion Guard integration be an option for change management? would, I don't know, if you maybe expand on that, or you know what he means by that, Leon?
I don't, but is Ryan here?
Yeah, Ryan's here. Ryan, do you know what, does that make any sense to you?
I think I know what he's asking. Get on camera here. That would require them to want to play with us, which is a very large question mark.
Elon, can I ask a crazy question? And if it's crazy, just we'll move on quickly. So, like, you know how is Fortify? You know, forgive me because I know there's a bunch of them out, but the one where you know we're correlating, you know, RMM information, if you will, is that correct? To which is the module where we're correlating RMM data?
UniFi.
UniFi.
Sorry, thank you, Ryan. So if I'm running in obviously most end users are running an RMM agent of some type. So let's just say we have a relationship with, just say, a BSA, and I can pick up MAC address on that device, right? In the just say RMM configuration. Is that fair, Ryan? As an example, you know, most RMMs are going to pick up MAC address. So I'm thinking from a zero trust perspective, if there was an integration there, could we start to look at things like that? You know, because we know IP can be obfuscated, but could we start to say, well, if we had an integration with these said RMM vendors, that we could go, oh, well, is the proper corresponding MAC address also communicated?
I really hope Mr. Steinhoff's paying attention to the
Yeah.
C's on the call, and that is right up his alley.
I
Of course
am.
he's paying attention.
Nope, I'm here. So we do have an integration to most RMMs, and we are pulling a ton of data from the RMM. That's usually not the case. The case is actually on the other side when you're performing activity, say at Microsoft.
Right.
They're not handing us the MAC address. So we don't have anything to correlate that to. But with the UniFi solution that we have today, between the IP, the device name, permutations of the username, full name, and the Entra device ID, we can pretty much nail it down to near certainty that the device is a managed device.
Yeah, and Adam, do you know what I'm saying? Like from, I hear what you're saying from the Microsoft side, but like a lot of the zero trust platforms, you know, like a true ZTNA platform, they're looking at specific hardware MAC address.
Mm-hmm.
Can that not be used as a correlative back if we're collecting that?
If we have it on both sides, we definitely could. I don't see a hardware fingerprint, so to speak, other than the Entra device ID that's handed to us from the SaaS platform that we're monitoring. So either I'm not understanding your question, or it's just not there today.
Okay. I'll maybe I can chat with you offline what I'm thinking tonight.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it, because if you've got something innovative, I'm ready to jump on it.
Okay.
I think the premise is exactly what we do aim for with UniFi, as far as identifying the device does belong to an individual, and if the activity taken isn't from a device we recognize, respond fires differently. Entra IDs seem to be more solid because BYODs is so common right now that not every device you guys are looking at is one that you're responsible for managing. So if we can correlate the user's Entra ID along with their SaaS data, we can do it for everything, even if it doesn't have your authentication.
Yeah, and there is a feature I am currently mapping out, dreaming up someday, sometime, where we will be identifying devices by picking up kind of the breadcrumbs, so to speak, in the SaaS activity, and you won't have to have an RMM backing it to be able to map that device to a user or an organization. And that actually will start to solve the BYOD solution when you don't have an RMM agent.
Got it. Awesome stuff. Let's see. Ben, is that something we need to address in chat, or we're good there?
Yeah, Steven had a question. Definitely good word.
I think Steven, is that Stephen King in the chat there?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I think I have a support ticket related to him. If that is you, Stephen, we identified that your automate instance actually does have the intra ID, but at the end of it, it has a /r/in, like a carriage return new line. And we don't know why your system has that. But we are implementing a fix right now to strip the extra characters from the Entra ID, which should cause it to resolve on our side, regardless of whether that script that you've written is putting that in or we're somehow snagging it, don't know. So if that's you, I would imagine in the next 2 weeks, Automate will fire up with Entra ID again.
Wonderful. Thanks for the update there. Yeah, I can't imagine why, but yeah, that would make sense. Thanks.
All right. All right, I think we're caught up. Leon, great stuff. That's really exciting what you guys are doing. All right, let me share out my screen and we'll wrap up today's call with kind of something Andy started. Well, kind of something Andy started, but even before that, what Leron sent me over an article, and I'm going to put it in chat. Thanks for sharing this, Leron. Let me just throw this in chat for everybody real quick. And so, you guys remember the? Oh gosh, that's small. Sorry, guys. I'll do a better job. Let me see if I can do a better job of that somehow. Or somebody can help me with that in the meantime. Sorry. All right.
No,
so
the link's in there. You're good.
All right. So you remember the whole at the end of last summer, the whole storm 0558, where the Chinese threat actor was able to get into the what was it, the customer it was gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the proper term, but the commercial then what was it, the not the business side, but the commercial, the customer side of Microsoft. But anyway, there was a big to do about this compromise. Well, it turns out that the way Microsoft understood it was targeting customer email. Well, it turns out, yes, those customer emails happen to be in this article, not just you and me and your customers, but the U.S. government. To the tune that the government is saying now, approximately 60,000 emails in the State Department being part of this exfiltration. So like that's why I was saying with Microsoft right now, man, between the code repository and Midnight Blizzard from the Russian compromise with APT29 to now this coming out, and what the State Department is saying, it is pretty amazing. Is that kind of what you took from this, Leron, as you read that article? That again, who knows what quote unquote hot water Microsoft's going to be in, but my pretty significant.
My takeaway on this was something that when I first joined this company, we would say something like, well, we don't want Microsoft policing Microsoft, right? And I was like, yeah, like that's a good sales thing that you have going on there. I like it. That works. But right, like this is truly an example of you need to have redundancies in place, right? So before this meeting, you guys may know I've had screen share issues before. Everyone makes fun of me. That's great. But I walk into this meeting and they say, hey, Amanda, I'm 95% sure I'll be able to present, but be ready just in case I can't go. So I'm a huge believer in redundancies. And I think that having redundancies to monitor what Microsoft is doing is absolutely critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like the threat reports say, like who's the #1 targeted industry? It's technology. And the reason it's technology is, if you think about it, technology companies like Microsoft, and even MSPs, but let's just take the big ones like Microsoft. Not only do they have massive supply chain implications in their code base, but I mean, just think of the database they have in terms of emails. It's right, arguably probably the largest database in the world in terms of email addresses, just with M365 alone. So that leads us into, Andy, kind of what you brought up, and maybe can you quickly just reiterate that story that you know, what happened with this?
Well,
Because
sure.
before you do, let me just kind of set the stage here. So what I want, the intent of what today's education session was about is that our customers, and I think a lot of us have become numb, right? Your customers roll their eyes, right? Oh, just another, well, if the big guys are getting compromised, what's going to keep me from getting compromised? Or, oh, no one wants my data or whatever. This, again, it's so often, this is just, look at this screen. This is this week. Just this week, right? And we're going to talk about the downstream effects that these large-scale data breaches have, that we should be educating our customers, because these large-scale data breaches, Andy, I'm going to let you take this right now a little bit, because when these large amounts of data get leaked, our customers reuse email addresses and passwords and don't do such a great job with MFA. Just look at Microsoft and their legacy email address if you think I'm joking around, right? Go ahead, Andy. Just kind of give us a quick synopsis of this.
Here is I watch YouTube blog, a guy named Joe Blogs, and he was hacked a week ago, and he's been building a channel for 3 years. He's got 400,000 subscribers, and he does news topics. And he was engaged by a company that wanted to do business with him, promoting a product on his channel. And he was initially skeptical, but went through 4 or 5 emails, began a discussion, and they sent him a media kit. And he chose to download this media kit using the same email address that he uses to manage his YouTube channel. By the way, have you looked at what support you get as an Outlook user or as a Yahoo user or as an AOL or a Gmail? There's zero support, right? And this media kit captured his MFA, his phone password for his email on his phone, his Gmail, and took control of everything. And he lost control of his channel, and they redid his channel as a cryptocurrency promoter, right? And he lost his business. He thought he was going to be out of business for 3 years. I mean, that's how long it took him to build his channel. I asked the question, what happens for our high value customers, the executives on those teams? How many of them have a Gmail or a Yahoo or an email account that they don't even think about what would happen if that got compromised? Do they have their bank accounts associated to it? What other critical information do they have that would prevent them from getting access to things? And how would they remediate that if they can't get back in to change Gmail, for example? There's your question.
And this is like the chain reaction is the term I wanted to use. So let's just say this Joe Blogger his email was in, for example, that AT&T breach, and that's where they got this, right? And again, with automation today, I quickly correlate, who this person is, what they do, to their LinkedIn account or whatever, or their YouTube channel. Again, with automation these days, this isn't hard to do. This isn't rocket science about what a threat actor can quickly figure out about you and your ID. And that's what we want to try to use today is to go and use this as education back to your customers that, no, don't just shrug off. I'm an AT&T customer, but it's no big deal, right? And the reason we don't want to shrug that off, I'm going to jump to really quickly here and put this one up here, is because of these statistics, right? These are the things you want to talk to your customers about. I mean, I know I'm guilty of it. Have you ever used the same password for one thing versus another thing? I think we've all been guilty of it. And therefore, again, when we look at credential reuse, and when you have a large scale data breach, and the way we're going to walk through the tactics that threat actors use, like credential stuffing and brute force and others, that's how they start to get into other things. And this is, when you look at 44% of these recycled passwords are, again, business related accounts. Like, this is the things that I want you share this data set with your customers that no, don't shrug these large scale large scale breaches off, because this is what it leads to, right? Credential stuffing, ATOs, BECs, spearfishings, etc. Right? And so this education today is to allow you to quickly go into a custom. I'll send this over to Amy to share with you guys if you'd like to have this, right? Some things that you can show in a kind of a very easy format to a customer or a prospect, that what the threat actor does, right? When they get a bunch of stolen credentials, they're not going one by one, right? They use bots, right? They're using technology just as good or better than anybody, right? To go ahead and look at all the potential accounts that they just harvested. And again, they're also going to correlate what they just harvested, let's just say in the AT&T attack, to what's available from other access brokers. And they're going to correlate those accounts together. So the more data out there that access brokers get and breaches get, right? If you think about it, the higher correlation you start to get. Does that make sense? Right? It's just literally statistical. It becomes more statistically significant the more data breaches that happen. Is that making sense to you all? So the next thing is ATOs. So what happens and the different types of account takeovers shifted at Light of Boom this year. And if you guys, I'll talk to Chip, maybe we get you guys a release of his recording if you didn't go to Light of Boom. I can share that with you guys. It was a phenomenal presentation on account takeovers. Then BEC, again, a very easy to understand graphic for you to share with your customers and your prospects of, again, how they use the credentials. What the terminology that threat actors do, which is called grooming, how they share out the emails, and then how they get the wire transfers to occur. This came up today. A lot of it's interesting. Chad, you started talking right earlier on about whaling, right? What are the different types of phishing and spearfishing that's occurring? And Andy, more than likely, right, if you think about it, whether we want to say this was, a whaling, the guy that you brought up, right? We could arguably say that was a whaling event, right? They targeted a guy that they knew had a big following, probably high value net worth now with 500,000 followers, and basically, got him to buy into that they were actually a media company and had something to offer his site. So again, these are direct results of large scale data breaches. This is what happens post those events. I want to show you something that happened to me personally yesterday that was really well done. Knock on wood, I didn't fall for it, but it was really, it got my attention really good. Ben, you're chuckling. Have you seen these?
Yeah, I love how creative they are.
Yeah, so think about this. So this is my legit one I sent to my son the same day. And let's just say I am an AT&T customer. So let's just say they had my email address, because this is the email address. My personal email address is linked to my AT&T account. This is one way in which they could have easily engaged me. Now, this Venmo targeted email, that Venmo is legit. When you hover over Paid Joan, it is going to a true Venmo URL. But what happens when you start to look, without obviously doing, not luckily I'm in the business and we can all fall prey to it. I didn't click it, but it was really interesting when you look at the customer. This is what tipped me off, their customer service. But this is what I was talking about, and how they get you to engage, right? If they can't get you to click the link, well, give us a call. Well, if you have customers that aren't socially astute about how that narrative is going to go, right? About, they're going to ask you certain information, right? oh, I know your email address is Ann at et cetera, et cetera. Yes, that's correct, right? They get you to start to say, yes, this is how they're socially engineering today. I know we're at the top of the hour, but would something like this be helpful? And then we talk about the mitigating steps. So was that helpful? So, what's old is new. Yeah, you're right. It is, Chad. That is the bottom line every year, unfortunately, from the Verizon data breach report. What is old is new, is really the moniker. So, all right, everybody. I hope great call today, Leon. Thank you for everything. Amy, thanks so much, and thanks for everybody.
If you get me that slide deck, I have a handful of people who requested it, and then Ben offered to post it onto the Discord channel, so everyone can have access.
Okay, perfect. All right, everybody.
Thank you guys. Have a great.
Wishing you all a fantastic one. Take care.
Bye, guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah.